Hey everyone, my name is Cruz Costilla. I'm from San Antonio, Texas, and today I'm going to be showing you how to smoke a bone-in pork Boston butt roast, also known as AKA pulled pork. So today it's going to be super simple. I'm going to take you step by step on how to pre-season this pulled pork, and also I'm going to show you how to do a quick trim on it. And then we'll take you step by step on how to smoke it. It's super easy to make this. It's very hard to ruin this, but I'm gonna show you step by step exactly how to do this at home in your backyard. All right, so the first step you're gonna wanna do is super simple. You're gonna wanna cut open this pork Boston butt roast and drain the juices and pat this dry with the napkin. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and we'll be back here in a second. Now, what I'm gonna show you guys is very simple. You just wanna trim the excess fat off the side here. Make sure you use like a really sharp, this is actually a carving knife. Some people will use a boning knife. Either way, just make sure it's a obviously super sharp knife that's easy to kind of trim away some of this fat. And that way the fat doesn't, burn up kind of in the smoking process. And then also too, I'm gonna trim some of the stick fat that's on the side, on the top here. Let's see here. I'm gonna trim actually some of this thick fat right here, so that way I can make sure that the seasoning, should be very careful with his knife is really sharp. Just want to kind of trim this fat off, so that way when you throw this seasoning on, the seasoning can make sure, that way you could taste it on the meat itself, and it doesn't it doesn't fall off from the fat rendering, and you can actually taste a good amount of that seasoning. But just be very careful on trimming this up. I'm gonna go ahead and trim this up, and then I will talk about the next step. All right, so now you can see that I did trim the fat off the top of this pork butt. Not the prettiest trim, but I did make sure to trim the fat off so that way I could expose the meat here. As you can see, some of the white is gone. And that's just to make sure that I get the good seasoning stuck on the meat here and get the most out of the flavor. Some people leave the fat on. If that's something you choose to do, that's totally up to you. But today, for me, I'm trimming the fat off here. And so now the next step here is I'm gonna go ahead and season up this pork butt. And what you want to do is actually use this mustard. You could use any flavor mustard. This is just a typical HEB yellow mustard. Just want to shake it up, obviously beforehand. And like I said, the mustard, it doesn't matter what brand. Some people use other things like olive oil. There's other kind of what are called binders that people will use to make sure that whenever you season your pork butt, the meat, that way the seasoning doesn't bounce right off whenever you're seasoning it. And so this just helps to make sure the seasoning actually sticks, okay? It does not affect the flavor at all, okay? The mustard, of course, will go away throughout the cook, but you just want to kind of lather this right here on the top here, all over, all right? And just make sure that the mustard is fully covered here. The seasoning I'm gonna use today is actually one of my favorite seasonings that I use from one of my favorite companies and YouTube channels, meatchurch.com. This is where actually I've learned a lot of my barbecue cooking and backyard grilling. And so they have a great seasoning called The Gospel. And this is an all-purpose rub. You could use this on brisket, you could use it on pork shoulder, other meats, you can season vegetables with it. They sell this on their website, meatchurch.com. I'll add this on the link down below in the video. And also, if you are local here in Texas, HEB has a lot of the seasonings as well. They don't have all of them, but they do have some of the seasonings that they offer. So this one is the one that I'm going to use today. And this is a big piece of meat, so you really want to cover up this meat. As you're going to see here, I'm going to go ahead and season it up. You're really going to want to put a good amount. It's a big piece of meat, and you just want to really cover the whole surface area of this pork shoulder here. Okay, so you're going to see I'm going to put quite a bit on, and that's just because you really want to make sure the flavor comes out on this pork shoulder. All right, so now that I've seasoned this pork shoulder, we're gonna let this sit for about at least 15 minutes. I'm actually gonna start my smoker outside. I have a Masterbuilt smoker and I need to get it started anyway, so it takes a little bit of time. You don't wanna just throw this pork shoulder right into the smoker right after seasoning. You wanna let the seasoning and the salts kind of draw out the moisture from the pork and make sure that it really sets in and you have a really good flavor with this pork shoulder. So you could do that. If you're gonna be smoking this pork shoulder the same day, then I recommend for sure to have this seasoned at least 15 minutes or more prior to, or if you want to pre-season this overnight, let it sit in the refrigerator, even better, right? So the next step now is I'm gonna prep my smoker, and I'm gonna talk about the temperature that I use for the length of smoke, and also I'm gonna talk about potentially how long this is gonna take to be able to smoke all night. So I'll see you soon. All right, so now this smoker is pretty much up to temp, which is about 200 degrees is what I wanted to have the temperature start at. You could have it start at 225, 250. You could even do 275, as high as 275. Matt Pittman from Meat Church talks about how he likes to run it at, at 275. It all depends on really how big the pork shoulder is and at what time you want this pork shoulder to be able to be finished by. And so for me, I'm looking at about a 9 to 10 hour cook. And then I usually like to have this rest about 6 hours in my cooler. So it just depends. But ultimately, this thing's probably gonna smoke between 9 and 10 hours, maybe 12. So I'm gonna go ahead and open this up. And I'm gonna actually put this pork shoulder, what's called fat cap up. So the fat cap is on this side here. This is where I cut all that fat here. And I'm gonna put it right on the top. One thing that actually I forgot to mention in the beginning too is that I do have some pecan chunk wood in the gravity fed charcoal hopper. So it's a mixture of HEB's Grand Champion charcoal and the pecan chunk wood. So you could use whatever you like. If you want to put oak or hickory, those are also two very popular pieces of wood. Or if you want to use any other fruit tree wood, that's good and fine with the pork shoulder. I don't recommend mesquite. Mesquite tends to be a little bit bitter on the smoke. It's like a really aggressive smoke, but it's totally up to you on what what actual wood you would want to use. So that's it. Put that right over this tray here. It's going to capture all the juices that will fall. Oh, and then actually before I close, I'm going to actually put this thermometer here right in the center. And that way I can keep track of the temperature from my Masterbuilt app. So I'm going to close this up. And that's pretty much it.
Alright, so it's a little past 7 hours of smoke right now, and it's about 152 degrees internal temp, so a little bit lower than I expected, but I'm gonna go ahead and wrap anyway. since for time purposes, as you can see, I'm gonna wrap this thing in foil. You could choose to wrap it like this, 2 sheets of foil, or you could get a pan, a foil pan, put it in the pan, and then wrap just the top over it. But for time purposes, I'm just gonna do the 2 sheets of foil, and this foil is gonna help to really increase that temperature, and I'm gonna bump this up to about 250 and keep an eye on it for probably the next at least 3 hours, and I'll come back and check it. So I'm gonna open it up now, and as you can see, it definitely has a really good kind of bark there. So it's about time I'll go ahead and wrap this thing up, and then I'll also remove the pan here. So I'll come back in about 3 hours. All right, we're about 192 internal temperature, so actually it's almost cooked. I'm gonna actually throw it in my oven because the charcoal ran out in the hopper. This usually lasts about 10 hours, which I'm not surprised, and I was already prepared for it. So I preheated my oven inside. I'm gonna go ahead and let it cook the rest of the way inside. And then once it is done, we will let it rest in the cooler. I'll be back. All right, so we are actually right about 200 degrees here. So I have the pulled pork in the oven, and you can see I actually bumped the temperature to actually 300, and that way I can kind of speed up the process. So if you want to speed up your cook time for family that's coming over, you can do that. I probably wouldn't recommend going over 300, but you could go over 300 if you wanted to. But yeah, so we're about 200. So I'm gonna pull this out. I'm gonna actually poke it a couple of times and see if there's any resistance, which there shouldn't be because we're right over 200 degrees. So yeah, I'm actually gonna, let me grab another glove because I know the pan itself is hot. I do have temperature gloves underneath here, but I mean, they're kind of thin. So just to be extra safe, I'm gonna use a mitt. Yeah, I need an oven mitt because I just touched it with my hand and it's hot. All right, so, but I can probably handle the probe with this mitt. Oh, it actually hit the bone there. So you kind of want to poke in a few spots. Yeah, there's very little resistance, so it's almost like when you go into a cake. So this is pretty much done. So what I'm gonna do is go ahead and take this out. Keep in mind that this thing will actually continue to cook. I'm actually trying to get to about 205. So since I'm pulling it out right at about 200, it's going to continue to cook beyond that. So I'm gonna put it in a smaller pan because we're gonna put this pan in this cooler right here. And now I'm gonna let this thing rest in here. Now something that some people do, which I do with this, is I use a cooler like this. I'm blessed enough to have, you know, this fancy heavily insulated cooler from HEB to allow this thing to rest for a long time. If you don't have something like this, then you could just leave it out. You just want to keep in mind, oh, you know what? I'm gonna put this probe back in because I want to let this pull up rest in here. And it's going to, I want the temperature to drop to about 140, 145 degrees. So this thing's probably gonna rest ultimately for the next 3 to 4, maybe 5 hours. Yeah, I'm just gonna increase the temperature so I just beeping a whole bunch. But basically, closing this up, I'm gonna let it rest for a while until we're ready to eat, which we're probably gonna eat between like 3 and 4 o'clock. So once it gets closer to that time frame,
I'm gonna check the temperature. If it's too hot, then obviously I'll just take it out, let it rest. Or if it's right at 140, 145, then obviously I'll just leave it in there until we're ready to eat. But other than that, that's pretty much it for any more cooking. So once it is done, I'll pull it out and show you what it looks like. All right, so this is the pulled pork here, and it looks like it is looking really good. You can see that this bone is kind of popping out here. It's got some good char, and that's pretty much it. See y'all later.